Hello guys, so we are now in Dubai and here with you Anna Tutova, co-founder of Coinstelegram, and our guest Mario Nawfal, who is the host of the most popular Twitter X Spaces roundtable show, and as well he is founder of IBC Group, and they accelerate and incubate different crypto and blockchain startups. Great to have you here, Mario.
Good to see you again, Anna. How are you?
Thanks, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
Can you tell us how did you discover crypto first and how did you get involved into the industry?
So it's not as exciting as most other people. Bitcoin just came up in the news, and I was one of the early stupid guys that believed in decentralization and didn't believe in Bitcoin. Remember those old arguments? I'm like, Bitcoin's the first, it probably won't last, but decentralization makes a lot of sense. And how I got involved, one of the easiest ways, and I've done this in other industries, one of the easiest ways to get involved in an industry I'm excited about and to learn about is to begin consulting and hire people that understand the industry. So I started IBC back in 2017, consulted businesses as before, the hype already started, but I didn't know about it. I didn't know what ICOs were. And I started consulting businesses back then, and then obviously grew to what it is today, and I became obsessed as I am today. And here I am with you now.
So did you know about the Bitcoin and crypto back in 2017, or was it earlier and you got involved later into the industry?
No, I got involved in 2017. I found out about it in 2015. So I found out about it early, as I said, a bit stupid. So I did not go ahead with Bitcoin. I should have bought a lot of, I almost bought a lot of Bitcoin. It's actually not my fault I didn't, it's my accounting team. So I almost bought a lot of Bitcoin. I did not, and I didn't get too deep into it. Just the concept of decentralization was very exciting for me. And then 2017 is when I started going all in. And I didn't become a believer in Bitcoin till after that bull run. Probably 2018, 2019, I started shifting more and more, saying, all right, this is standing the test of time. And obviously now Bitcoin is Bitcoin.
And what did stop you from buying Bitcoin back in 2015? Like, what concerns did you have about it?
Okay, so there's the real reason I didn't buy it, and there's the cool answer on why I didn't buy it. Now, the cool answer is I believed in decentralization. I thought Bitcoin won't last. The real reasons I told my team to buy a lot of Bitcoin, I remember the day, it was on an exchange called Bitstamp. So I told my accounting team to buy it. They hated the concept. And I didn't remind them. I'm like, they're going to do it. And I forgot about it. A few years later, I'm like, I go in the exchange to check, and there's nothing there. I'm like, guys, didn't you buy? They're like, yeah, we tried to transfer money to the exchange. It didn't work, and we left it. I'm like, great. Well, by the way, that same Bitcoin would have been worth X now, and now we have none of it. So and I also used to accept, I was very early in accepting Bitcoin in my other companies. So I have a company I've had for 10 years that still exists today. It's in over 20 countries. And that company accepted Bitcoin very, very, very early on. But again, my manager of that company put that auto exchange. So essentially any Bitcoin we received was immediately exchanged for US dollars. So we ended up with no Bitcoin when we should have had a lot of Bitcoin.
So what business did you run before starting IBC and getting into crypto?
So I have a business called Fruity. That was my first business ever. It's about 10 years ago I started it. I don't personally manage the business. It's been years I don't manage it. It's got its own board, its own team. But it's my first company ever. And that's the company that funded my venture into crypto and still exists today doing really, really well. So that's my first business. So I used to accept, I was probably one of the first people in the world that accepted Bitcoin.
So what percentage of your assets are in crypto, and like specifically in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and
very high.
And what percentage in other asset classes?
If you consider asset classes, including my other company and assets there.
I would say probably like not the company, but maybe like stocks, golds, bonds, etc.
Getting 90% in crypto. And because my hedge against a crypto collapse, a complete capitulation of crypto, is my other company that gives me a comfortable life for as long as I like. So I've got a hedge. Now, if I didn't have a hedge, my answer would probably be different. But I do have that hedge, which is a profitable company I've had for over 10 years.
And as well, you mentioned that government may kill crypto, may kill Bitcoin. So now governments are making their alternative. Governments are now working on CBDCs, launching their pilots, so researching the implementation of CBDCs. So what are your thoughts on CBDCs, and how in future will crypto coexist with
the C stands for central. crypto is all about decentralization. So I just don't see CBDCs to be crypto. I see CBDCs to be efficient. I see CBDCs to be a step in the right or wrong direction depending on your beliefs. But they're not crypto. They're the opposite of crypto. I don't see them, in the short term, they're going to dominate, and it's inevitable. But in the long term, they're going to slow what crypto stands for, but they will not replace it because it's something completely different. So you're going to have that battle. And I think we're seeing that battle play out. And I don't think it's playing out to the level of people expecting. It will get worse, in my opinion, as Bitcoin and crypto gets more adoption. We'll see how regulators act. I really don't know. I think everyone talks about CBDCs killing crypto, government killing crypto. I don't know. It's really tough because you find some regulators that are very pro-crypto. They understand decentralization. They understand innovation. You see like what we saw the DOJ action against CZ. Well, they could have done a lot worse. They could have hurt crypto by destroying Binance in a much uglier way. They didn't. They came to in my opinion, a pretty fair agreement. So I'm split on that. I think CBDCs very scary, very dystopian. But at the same time, if anything, it could highlight to people the use case of crypto even further when people really understand what CBDCs could do to our life and destroying privacy.
And how do you see institutional adoption of crypto? We see now more and more institutionals starting investing into crypto as well, and a lot of traditional investment managers are now filing for Bitcoin spot ETFs. So what are your expectations?
It's changed dramatically. I remember back in 2017, 2018, everyone was talking about the herd is coming. Do you remember that? The herd is coming, the herd is coming. Well, the herd is here. The herd is all over crypto. You had certain things that were acting as a setback. You had obviously SAM, SBF, FTX, Binance, CZ. You've got all the other smaller scams and issues, and you've got Celsius, Voyager, etc. So you just had those clouds hanging over the industry. Well, now all of them are getting settled. You've got DCGs in progress. Tether is always going to get FUD. But other than DCG and Tether, which have, in my opinion, have been priced in, what do you have? You have CZ and Binance, been concluded yesterday. SBF, been concluded, he's now found guilty. There's nothing left. Everything else is going through bankruptcy proceedings. And all the smaller scams are being caught one after the other. So now you've got the clouds moving away. You've got that clarity about the industry. The traditional guys are not going to come in and say, what about FTX, what about Binance? Because they've been settled. Regulators have acted. And now with the spot ETF essentially inevitable, you just have such a clear, clean path for adoption. And you're seeing that clarity is being perceived very positively by the traditional world. They're feeling a lot more comfortable talking about crypto. They're feeling a lot more comfortable moving on from NFTs are a scam. And I only see that continuing to evolve. And we've seen that reflect in the price of Bitcoin. Like where we are today is during pre-FTX days, I think, if my memory is correct. So we're at a pretty exciting stage. I'm not talking about the price. I can never speculate the price. I'm really bad. But I can just tell you what I'm seeing in terms of sentiment. And the adoption is happening.
So when do you think we will see the approval of Bitcoin spot ETF?
There's much smarter people that know this, but then I can just translate what they answered. I can't remember the percentage, but it's possible obviously this year. The latest will be first quarter of next year. Obviously we could be completely way off, but every indicator is pointing to pretty damn soon.
And why do you think it's important, the approval of Bitcoin spot ETF?
It's more of a symbolic gesture. So number one is allows all these asset managers to put their money into crypto. That's the obvious answer. But answer number two, that's not as obvious, is it's like a stamp of approval. When we got BlackRock saying, hey, we believe in this industry. We've applied for a Bitcoin. We've got a Bitcoin ETF. We're offering a Bitcoin ETF as a product. And we've applied for an ETH ETF as well. For me, there's nothing else that could act as a stamp of approval that is, okay, hey, we're moving to the next stage than that. And if you add that to all the regulatory action and the conclusions in all these investigations that have been, again, that Binance investigation has been mentioned by so many people I talk to. That what about Binance? What about CZ? Well, now you've got an answer. So, it's all coming together in a perfect way. And some people look at it as a coordinated plan in some way. at least some form of coordination. I wouldn't be surprised if there is. But whether or not there is, that's, if you want TradFi to come into the Web3 world, that's how they do it.
So regarding the Binance, how do CZ is stepping down now? They have a new CEO, Richard Tan. So how do you see now the development of Binance, and what will it mean for the industry in your opinion? Yeah,
so obviously we have to see in a few months what happens to CZ, and hopefully he wouldn't have to face jail time. You know, a fan of CZ and what he's done for the industry. He's taken some risks. Now, whether he's done it because he believes in the industry, he's done it for financial purposes, or both. You know, he's an entrepreneur. And that's what got Binance to where it is today. He did take some risks. He was there early when there was no regulatory clarity. And I think the settlement they have is a pretty fair settlement. I think you got to be held liable for risks you take. But at the same time, the settlement was done in a way that doesn't harm crypto, that ensures Binance continues to operate. And you know, we'll see what Richard does as a new CEO. There's just a lot of rumors, a lot of discussions on what could be next, things that, and I'm not privy to say in front of a camera, and I wouldn't know as well as they would. But I think we're going to be seeing more steps in that same direction of the traditional players getting more involved in crypto. And you can connect the dots. And I think Binance losing market share is a positive thing for crypto. I think even Binance would tell you that. I think even CZ said it once, said it on the show, probably said it publicly on other shows as well. He said it's not a bad thing to have competitors. We're all talking about decentralization. Well, here we have the biggest exchange, one big point of failure. Like in the 2 years ago, someone said, see, Binance is going to collapse. People are like, crypto's going to die, no more crypto. Now it's just Binance represents a much smaller market share. BUSD represents a significantly smaller market share. Binance US is gone. And it's just a great thing to see. I don't mean that in a mean way. A great thing to see if you believe in decentralization, which you should, because then you're removing different points of failure for the industry.
And in your opinion, what do we need for the crypto mass adoption?
Crypto mass adoption, we have what we need. Education is an obvious one, but other than that, you got clear regulation heading in the right direction, slowly but surely, and you've got big guys' stamp of approval. ETF is one example. We already have that approval, in my opinion, that stamp of approval by BlackRock filing for an ETF and talking about crypto the way they are. I don't think there's much more to it. I think as long as we keep getting regulatory clarity, just be patient. There's not much more. What else could we ask for? I think we got everything we've been asking for the past few years. Now we just got to be patient and let things continue to play out as they are.
So you're now as well based here in Middle East in Dubai, and you lived in many other countries. So what differences do you see in the crypto regulations in different regions, and as well, like what differences do you see in terms of innovation and projects being built in different regions?
There's that battle. Is that are startups and investors moving away from the US or to the US? Most people are saying they're moving away from the US. And why am I talking about the US? Look, Dubai is obviously extremely friendly to crypto. They've been burnt by crypto and they still believe in crypto, and that has worked well to their advantage. You've got some of the biggest names, including CZ, that live in Dubai. So then the question is, you know, what about the rest of the world? East Asia is doing extremely well. I think obviously China's still way behind the US. Hong Kong shows signs that they're heading in the right direction. But I just don't want to dismiss the US as most people are. I think the US is a democratic country. Democracy is inefficient. Decentralization is inefficient. Democracy is meant to be a form of decentralization. While inefficient, it's just the way it plays out. I think we should let it play out. I think the US still has that stamp of approval. If we're investing in a project that's based in the US, we're a lot more comfortable investing in that project than a project based on some random island. So I wouldn't dismiss the US. I would applaud every other country doing the right thing. Not the right thing, sorry. I would applaud every other country taking the risk and adopting crypto faster and understanding crypto and giving it enough attention and time, and it's working to their advantage. And I just urge the US to kind of put politics aside and really focus on the advantages of leading the way. But then again, they're not going to listen.
And now we see as well some countries which adopted Bitcoin as legal tender, for example, as El Salvador or Central African Republic. So what are your views on that? And as well, we see some other countries which may be considering adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender, like Argentina. They got just a new pro-Bitcoin president, Javier Milei. So, like, what are your views on that?
Yeah. So look, Argentina is going to be adopting the US dollar well before they adopt Bitcoin. I think adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender still has a way to go. But then again, if we talked about this 5-10 years ago, about countries adopting crypto or talking about crypto, US presidential candidates talk, Vivek, RFK, talking about crypto, it would be a dream for us back then. Now it's becoming a part of normal life. Politicians talking about crypto coming on different, I'm talking about just my show, having them come on when FTX was collapsing and talking about the benefits of DeFi. I've had senators come on and talk about DeFi while FTX was collapsing. It's beautiful, but politics still takes central stage, and we've seen that play out in the press conference yesterday when it comes to CZ. Suddenly, the entire press conference, when journalists were asking questions, it wasn't about crypto, it wasn't about decentralization, it was about Hamas and crypto being used to fund terrorism. Because that's what's the cool thing to talk about now when it comes to politics. It's always going to be a headache. I think some countries, especially smaller countries, would be adopting Bitcoin. A lot of it would be symbolic. There's advantages to it as well, but it's just a very early experiment that I don't think any of the big countries that will make a difference are going to be adopting Bitcoin anytime soon. And I don't think they should. Let's just give it time, let things play out, let those small countries act as experiments, and we can go step by step to hopefully Bitcoin potentially becoming legal tender.
And can you tell us well more about your show? So you chose the platform X for it. So why did you choose exactly that platform? And how did the idea of creating your show come to you?
Yeah, so I used to do audio rooms back on Clubhouse days. I used to have the biggest audio room on a daily basis on Clubhouse. Then obviously Clubhouse died. So I'm like, all right, I took a break, focused on my companies. And X, or Twitter back then before Elon, had Spaces. So I'm like, all right, let me give that a try. Prepared and did a crypto show. And I started doing a bi-weekly crypto show. And it was, it turned out to be very successful, ended up being the biggest space from day one. And then FTX collapsed. So when FTX collapsed, I was covering the whole story 24/7. And then while I'm covering FTX in the later stages when it started to quiet down and, after a couple of weeks, there's the missile crisis in Poland. Do you remember that? When a missile landed in Poland, everyone thought it was a Russian missile, everyone freaked out. So that happened while I was on a space. I'm like, holy shit. Suddenly I'm talking about that and people, all military guys came to my space. I'm like, wow, spaces are so fascinating. And since then, it's just been one thing after another. Now we cover all the big events, global events, wars, the mutiny, the current war. And we became the biggest show on X. Now, why X? I'm a fan. Elon's been very supportive in bringing attention to the show and what we do and the concept of citizen journalism. I'm a big fan of the focus on fighting censorship. We're talking about decentralizing the world with decentralization. Well, Elon's done a pretty good job at decentralizing censorship through community notes. And the vision of X being the everything app is something that really fascinates me. So I've decided to put all my eggs in that basket, and it's paid off really well. So we have the Twitter Spaces, we have the video show as well, and we've got pretty incredible reach covering everything, including crypto. So I still do a daily show with Ran and Scott from Crypto Banter and Wolf of Wall Street. So we do a daily show Monday to Friday. And I cover breaking news events in crypto. I did CZ yesterday for 4 hours. So yeah, that's my show, and we became a media company kind of thing after FTX, thanks to Sam. And so now we've got the incubator, accelerator, and we've got the media aspect and the whole concept of citizen journalism, which kind of expanded to something a lot bigger than just crypto. But crypto's still where my heart is and where all my focus from a monetary perspective, from a business perspective, is crypto. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating to be able to cover things like the Ukraine war. It's fascinating to cover things like the war in Gaza, the Trump's legal issues, the elections, like all these things are pretty incredible. And being able to reach millions of people on a show, being able to have real impact, like having Bill Ackman and Mark Cuban come on and speak live, and Jason Calacanis speak live on the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank as it's happening. Something I never expected I'd be in that position, and something I'm pretty grateful to be in that position, and something I'm passionate about. I've been passionate about geopolitics since I was a kid. So a pretty cool position to be in.
Yeah, and you mentioned you got all those great great guests like Mark Cuban, Bill Ackman, as well Elon Musk himself, and as well some politicians. How did you get all those people?
It's fascinating. Like Bill Ackman and Mark Cuban, I didn't even invite them. They watched the show, and so when we're covering something live, the beautiful thing, like I was in Costa Rica last week talking about decentralized journalism. So the way it works is, right now when you watch CNN, you watch Fox News, BBC, they have their own guests already planned. They have their own agenda, and there's people in the background that kind of update them with the news. Well, the way we do it is we involve our community. So when we post, our community can give us quick feedback, might share information. When I'm doing a space, the community is sending us information. Community on the ground, I've had people in Gaza, I've had people in Israel send us updates live. So what happens when I was covering SBF, something you can relate to, or the mutiny was crazy. I had people on the ground. I was the first person to report the deal between Prigozhin and Putin. By the way, we almost got Prigozhin on the show. Obviously, he's dead now. But I was the first person to talk about the deal, unconfirmed, and then the rest of the media was listening. And that's because the people on the ground were sending it. And we had all these different Telegram groups as well that we used as a source. So you asked about the guests. Well, the guests listen, but the cool thing about Spaces is the guests that are listening, whoever it is, they request to speak. So we had some of the creators. That's how Elon came on. Elon's been on a few times. Sometimes I invited him, but other times he will just be listening and he just comes up to add a few points. That's what he did during the Twitter files, and that's what he did during SBF. The first time he came on, that was his first space ever. And the list goes on. We've had senators just come on and just start speaking. I've had the IDF, like military personnel in Israeli military personnel come up. We've had people in Palestine, in Gaza or in West Bank just come up and start speaking. In Iran, when I was covering Iran, because they're listening and I can add to this, or they're talking about subject I'm involved in, or they're talking about me and request. I was covering Sam Altman. You're talking about Sam Altman and OpenAI. Well, I was talking about Sam when the news first broke off him being fired. Now, obviously, he's back today. What a world we live in. But when I was talking about him being fired, his sister came on and requested to speak. And she's obviously, according to some people think she's part of the story, or could be. And we had the founder of TED come up and speak. We had other executives at OpenAI request to speak. So it's kind of decentralizing the whole process of bringing guests, of verifying news and receiving news, and involving your audience as part of your whole coverage. So they become, like, we got to find a way to kind of decentralize the whole monetization aspect, so audience members get value as we reach bigger numbers. That's going to be probably the next step I should look into.
So what do you think about all this story with the firing and getting back of Sam Altman and like the changing of CEOs every day?
Look, we talk about the whole concept of decentralization. Well, a board is meant to be decentralizing decision-making in a company. Decentralization is not perfect, and it's not decentralized enough in this case. But we're just letting it play out. I think there's too many unknowns right now. The only thing that we do know is that AI is going to play a key part of our everyday life, a scary part of our everyday life in the next few years and decades. And having such important figures play such an important role is the same the concern we had when Vitalik and others played a very key role in the survival of crypto. Vitalik, something happened to Vitalik 7 years ago, it would have a much bigger impact to crypto, or obviously CZ 3, 4, 5 years ago. Much bigger impact to crypto. And I think that centralization of influence, of power in people like Sam Altman and OpenAI and the board at OpenAI is something that concerns me. So I'm just letting it play out and not speculating much. We might, again, today I woke up to the news that he's been rehired.
Yeah, and as well, you mentioned that Elon Musk was on your show. So did you ever meet him in person and talk with him?
No, I haven't had the chance to meet him in person yet. I don't travel. I really should travel more and try to meet him. But I haven't had that opportunity. But he's been on the show a few times, and he's been he's been doing well with X.
So did you invite him first on your show, or did he just come?
No, first time he just came on. So because obviously in the space it shows up, so he follows me. So my space always shows up. So he just comes on when it's relevant. He doesn't do many spaces now. He used to do them a lot more before. Mm-hmm. But he, in the first time was him just rocking up, and him requesting, and I co-hosted him at the time, which was interesting. But I was very chill about it. I never knew the amount of influence Elon has until now, and I think his influence even grew further in the last year since I first had him on. And since then, I would send him an invite if it's a relevant space. So if there's a space where there's value to him, I would send him an invite. But if it's just a random space, I want him on, it's no point to it. But the second time he came on alone, the Twitter files. The third and fourth, I think it's 4 times total. All the other times, whether 2 or 3 more, I think I invited him. And he would just rock up and add value if it's relevant.
And you told that you have people on posts who give you information and updates on some news. So how do you verify whether those news are valid and true?
Very difficult, especially during times of the fog of war. So we need a few sources before being able to verify. If it's a direct source giving us the information, I think transparency is the most important thing. We mention all our sources whenever we get a story. If something is unconfirmed, we mention it's unconfirmed. If we get a story from an Israeli media company, or I'm using the war as an example, or a Palestinian media company, we put the source clearly so people see this is Al Jazeera or this is Al Quds. It's probably going to be biased more towards Palestine. And then if you've got a source of Channel 13 or Haaretz, it's going to be more biased towards Israel. So I think people can connect the dots as long as we're transparent about what the source is. And now, again, in the rare cases that we have the actual source rather than using another media outlet, or if it's from like a Telegram group, there's a lot of groups that are, that are early in the news, but they might not get it right. We usually make it clear this is unconfirmed until we got a few sources confirming it.
And did you publish false news from those sources?
Of course, everyone, there's always going to be, everybody will publish false news. But this is false news not because we assumed something wrong, we speculated something wrong, but that's because the media outlet got it wrong, or some people think it's false news because it hasn't been verified publicly. Like we've posted news that everyone saw it as false, and a few days later, we were one of the first ones to talk about the issues, the concerns with DCG. When I talked about the concerns with DCG when FTX was collapsing, I was attacked like crazy, like heavily attacked. And we know the rest, what happened. So sometimes something might be seen as false news, but later materializes. So it's a very thin line. But I think, again, being transparent about it has helped tremendously. And if there's false news, usually what we do is we immediately delete and then put a new post clarifying what it meant. But it's been extremely rare now, again, because we're so strict. And if something's unconfirmed and false, well, it's unconfirmed. So I'm pretty comfortable with that.
And where do people reach out to you to send you some news?
Send me some news. Just reach out to me on X, on Twitter. Just look up my name, Mario Nawfal, and hit me up with the news.
Okay, great. And as well, now we have a lot of talks about decentralized social media and new apps appearing. So what are your thoughts on decentralized social media?
I was very early. So I was one of the earliest guys on BitClout DeSo, which was the decentralized social media platform. Obviously blew up and it blew up. And I love the concept of decentralizing social media, but just there's so many layers to it to decentralize. So what we're seeing in crypto is tokenizing a personality. So we're seeing right now with FinTech and a bunch of others. And we saw that with DeSo, with BitClout. And it's a fascinating concept. We're talking about NFTs. Well, now you're turning someone's brand into an NFT. And this opens up the door with such fascinating use cases. Imagine allowing people that own your token to have access to you, to be able to jump on a call with you, to share value with you, to share, whether it's a security or not, it's not for me to determine, and I'll leave that discussion for a lawyer. But to be able to share revenue, if legally is possible, it's a fascinating concept. And then you essentially allow your fans to own a piece of your reputation. And that for me is an untapped market. So I talked about what excites me. Well, gaming is one, and decentralized social is two. These are the two things that excite me the most for the next bull market.
Are you on FinTech or any other decentralized social media yourself?
Yeah, so I'm in DeSo, BitClout, and I'm on FinTech. I don't think I'm on some others. So I think I opened an account on PostTech, but I don't know if it still exists. I haven't used it. I've used FinTech to test it out. And obviously I was very heavy onto BitClout and DeSo when it was really, when it was much bigger. Now I just check it out every once in a while. I'm an investor in one big business in that ecosystem. But we're an investor in Favor as well, Phaver. We're a big investor there. And they're built on Lens protocol, another example. So you've got all these different use cases. And obviously you've got Blue Sky that's competing with Twitter, a decentralized version of Twitter. You've got Twitter decentralizing different layers. I like the way Twitter and X is doing it, because they're doing it layer by layer. So instead of starting with everything decentralized, as some of us Web3 like to do, what X is doing is like, okay, we're going to decentralize that layer. We're going to decentralize the code or access to the code. So they're like decentralizing different aspects of it. We'll see how far down the decentralization path they'll go and how much of it is feasible.
And so do you see that these decentralized social media have a chance, and what will be the way of the acquiring of the users, because like everybody adjusted to just use traditional social media such as X, Facebook, and etc.
I think FinTech is doing it well. I think they just focus on one thing. So what BitCloud did was compete with social media. I think competing with social media won't work. It's just so difficult, so difficult. What will work is focusing on the ability to own keys, shares, tokens, whatever you want to call it, in a person. I think tokenizing someone's reputation, someone's brand, is the use case that matters, and having that as a layer on top of other social media platforms. I think that would make more sense to me. I think this is the way to do it. And from there, you can slowly expand the ecosystem as you get more adoption and expand that into a social media platform, if that makes sense. But if you're going to go immediately with a social media platform, it's a very, very steep uphill battle.
So with FinTech, it sounds some kind of like speculative, not really like the value of the traditional social media. So do you see all these decentralized social media will still like remain only for very narrow crypto-oriented audience, so like for audience which is interested in speculation, or will they ever maybe like with the new generation have bigger adoption?
They're trying to get Web2 to come on. It's too pump and dumpy for me. Like I think FinTech is the way it's the model, the tokenomics of it. It doesn't scream to me adoption. It screams to me make money, and I just don't think that's sustainable. And that was a weakness in BitCloud DeSo as well in their bonding curve. So I think we're far off from it, and I think it's not a bad thing. I think if you focus on getting crypto users, and if you focus on, if you want to become the casino for people, focus on that, embrace it. Again, get a good lawyer, but embrace it. And from there, you can grow it into something else. But if you focus on that particular niche, it could work. And focus on that, getting that Web3 audience. But just make sure you figure out your tokenomics. I think that's by far the most important thing.
And as well, do you post your content which you post on X on other decentralized social media, such as like Favor or
No, I don't. So I probably should. There's a way to automatically post on FinTech. I think now you can post on FinTech. But there's an automatic way to post on BitCloud. I don't know about Favor, if there's any tools that allow you for that. But I just feel very loyal to X. And if I create content on the other platform, it has to be native for those platforms. If people want to follow me on X, everyone's probably going to be on X anyway. So on FinTech, I would share private DMs, private messages. I haven't posted anything yet. I think I just saw that feature recently. But again, I'm not that active on those. It's more experimenting. It's more kind of supporting the ecosystem, rather than really building an audience there. I think it's way too early for that. So no, I'm just really focused on X, and I feel like that's from a business perspective, it's the right thing to do. I just believe in what the path is heading down. And from on a personal level, I just think it's the right thing to do, considering the value X has brought me. So we'll see.
And in your opinion, what will be the catalyst for the next bull market?
Gaming.
And as well, can you share some of your altcoin picks? Where do you invest?
No, I hate it. I don't even though there should be some I should share. I usually avoid it because I just don't want it to backfire on me. So I talk about them in my show. It's just more comfortable there. There's a few on the tip of my tongue, but I try to avoid the drama and share it. Crypto.
It's not financial advice.
Yeah, not financial advice. But usually when someone says not financial advice, they should stop there, because if you say non-financial advice and then give financial advice, so what's the point of saying non-financial advice? So look, I would look at, as you say this, I would look at games that are moving slowly. I would look at games that are implementing decentralization layer by layer and heavily focusing on tokenomics rather than getting users. I would focus on games that talk less about money making and talk more about the game itself. I would focus on games that have good metrics, daily active users, etc. And I will just look at the game and make sure the team is there and the visuals, the experience is there as well. So I've kind of given indicators of what to look for rather than actual game names. Because you have to understand the failure rate of games is extremely high. So me giving picks is a 90 whatever % chance I'm going to get it wrong. So I'm not taking that bet.
Thank you for such exciting conversation.
Thank you so much.